From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now! Furloughed workers chant, "Let them vote," as the federal government partial shutdown enters its 10th day. The workers rallied in Washington. We'll speak to Democratic Congressmember Raul Grijalva, co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, on the shutdown, the debt ceiling, and why he was arrested Tuesday, along with 200 others, calling for a vote on a stalled immigration bill. Then take back the streets, repression and criminalization of protest around the world.
The need to keep both safety and freedom primary in people's minds. That one is not the maidservant or the handservant of the other. That if you had safety without freedom, you would have a dictatorship or a totalitarian regime. And if you had freedom without safety, you would have anarchy. That much of what defines America is having both on co-equal terms.
We'll look at a major new report detailing the global crackdown on peaceful protests with Anthony Romero, head of the American Civil Liberties Union, as well as leading civil liberties campaigners from Canada and Egypt. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Obama's meeting with top House Republicans today in their first sit-down since the partial government shutdown began over a week ago. On Wednesday, Republicans signaled a potential willingness to back down in their campaign to defund or delay Obamacare. Republican Congressmember and House Budget Committee Chair Paul Ryan floated a plan that would raise the nation's borrowing limit over the short term in return for broader talks on reducing the deficit. Republicans are seeking major cuts to spending on social programs as part of any deficit reduction deal. A private charity has agreed to make payments to the families of U.S. soldiers killed during the government shutdown. The Pentagon announced this week the shutdown prevents it from providing the $100,000 death gratuity that helps cover grieving relatives' immediate expenses until longer-term benefits kick in. Under a new agreement, Fisher House Foundation will make the payments until the Pentagon can reimburse it when the shutdown ends. Democratic Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois said 17 families have been denied payments so far.
Families who in the last few days had that awful knock on the door where they were told that their son had died in service to this country in the United States military. 5 of them over the weekend, I understand 17 during the course of this government shutdown. And sadly, the support which we always give to these families is not there. It's not there.
The UN's top chemical weapons inspector says he expects the current disarmament mission in Syria to reach its target deadline of mid-2014. Ahmet Uzumko of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons says inspectors plan to visit over 20 sites in the coming weeks.
There are over 20 sites that need to be visited in the coming days and weeks. And so far, they are making an inventory of what they found. And today also, they are visiting another site near Damascus. So it's too early, in fact, to make an assessment of, evaluation of these, of their findings. Therefore, if we can ensure some cooperation by all parties, and if some temporary ceasefires, in fact, could be established in order to permit our experts to work in a permissive environment, I think the targets could be reached.
Libyan Prime Minister Ali Zaidan has been freed from captivity after being seized earlier today. A group of armed assailants snatched Zaidan from the Tripoli hotel where he resides before letting him go. The abduction appeared to be in response to the U.S. operation over the weekend that seized top al-Qaeda suspect Abu Anas al-Libi from the streets of Tripoli. Zaidan was reportedly released after a group of armed protesters fired on the building where he was being held. The Obama administration's confirmed plans to scale back aid to Egypt's military government 3 months after the ouster of President Mohamed Morsi. On Wednesday, the State Department said the U.S. will withhold hundreds of millions of dollars in military assistance until credible progress is made towards a, quote, inclusive, democratically elected civilian government. The withheld equipment reportedly includes Abrams tanks, F-16 aircraft, Apache helicopters, and Harpoon missiles, but military training will continue. Netanyahu. The White House has avoided the automatic suspension of military aid to Egypt by refusing to deem Morsi's ouster a coup. A group of Haitians and their advocates have filed a lawsuit against the United Nations for the cholera outbreak in Haiti that has killed more than 8,000 people and sickened more than 600,000. The disease strain has been traced to UN peacekeepers from Nepal who deployed after Haiti's 2010 earthquake. The UN rejected a formal petition for compensation to the victims earlier this year. The suit seeks damages from the UN and class action status on behalf of thousands of victims and their families. A new study is warning global temperatures could increase to a point of no return by the middle of the century. Based on climate modeling, researchers at the University of Hawaii say that if greenhouse gas emissions are not reined in, average worldwide temperatures around 2047 will be warmer than at any point between 1860 and 2005. The changes could be so extreme that the coldest year in the future could still be warmer than the hottest year in the past. The head of Greenpeace International has offered to exchange his own freedom for the release of 28 environmentalists and 2 journalists facing piracy charges in Russia. The Arctic 30 were detained in a Greenpeace direct action against Russia's first Arctic offshore oil rig last month. In an open letter to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Greenpeace Executive Director Kumi Naidoo offered to live in Russia as a guarantor for the activists' release on bail.
Given that our activists have been denied bail yet again today, I've written to President Putin seeking an urgent meeting with him and offering to come to Russia and offering myself as a guarantor in exchange for the release on bail of the activists and to stay in Russia for as long as the trial takes. I recognize that there is a risk in this, given that I had participated in exactly the same action last year. However, given the urgency that the United Nations has just called on us to act on climate change and the fact that we're running out of time, this is a risk that we are prepared to take.
Russia now says it plans to bring new charges against the detained activists after claiming to have found illegal drugs and potential military equipment on board the seized Greenpeace ship. To hear a description of what they did, to hear our extended interview with Kumi Naidoo, you can go to our website at democracynow.org. President Obama has formally unveiled Janet Yellen as the next new chair of the Federal Reserve. Yellen currently serves as the Fed's vice chair under current head Ben Bernanke, whose term ends in January. On Wednesday, Obama praised Yellen's track record while Yellen vowed to assist those hardest hit by the economic recession.
You know, Janet is renowned for her good judgment. She sounded the alarm early about the housing bubble, about excesses in the financial sector, and about the risks of a major recession. She doesn't have a crystal ball, but what she does have is a keen understanding about how markets and the economy work, not just in theory, but also in the real world.
I think we all agree, Mr. President, that more needs to be done to strengthen the recovery, particularly for those hardest hit by the Great Recession. We have made progress. The economy is stronger and the financial system sounder.
Yellen will be the first woman to serve as Federal Reserve Chair. Although she's been described as a progressive nominee, Yellen previously supported the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act that separated commercial and investment banking. She also backed the 1993 NAFTA agreement, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which critics say has undermined worker and environmental rights. In other White House news, Heather Zickal, President Obama's chief climate advisor, has resigned. She oversaw Obama's major climate change initiative unveiled in June, but her tenure was marked by speculation she wasn't given enough authority to tackle global warming initiatives. California Governor Jerry Brown has signed into law a measure expanding access to abortions by allowing more health practitioners to provide them. Under the law, nurse practitioners, nurse midwives, and physician assistants will be able to perform the common surgical procedure known as aspiration during the early stages of pregnancy. 4 other states allow nurse practitioners to provide such abortions. The law's authors say it will help bring abortion to remote areas that lack providers. Relatives of a slain African-American man in Georgia are accusing police of shooting him dead without cause in his own home. Police were apparently summoned to the home of Jack Lamar Roberson by accident after his fiancée called 911 to seek emergency medical help. Roberson was diabetic and had apparently been acting erratically. When police showed up instead of an ambulance, officers say Roberson was armed with 2 knives, but his fiancée, Alicia Herron, tearfully denied the police account.
He didn't have nothing in his hands at any time or period at all before they came. Anytime while they was here or anything, they just came in and shot him. He didn't say nothing. The police didn't say nothing. Anything. It was like a silent movie. You couldn't hear anything. And all you heard was some gunshots go off, and I seen them go in his body, and he just fell down.
And an undercover New York City police officer arrested in the infamous motorcycle gang incident on the West Side Highway has been found to have previously spied on Occupy Wall Street. Detective Wojciech Brajkak was detained after taking part in an attack on a motorist in an SUV that was caught on video. Occupy activists say he was previously arrested as an undercover officer posing as a demonstrator in Grand Central Station. He's with the NYPD's Intelligence Division. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.